All right, week 4 in the books. So we got this is just a quick video. I'll try to go as fast as I can. How do we do for the weekend? Were my predictions correct? Was I totally wrong? And then what we learned. So first off, I got Saints Lions. I don't have a ton to say about this one. I sort of liked the Lions in this one. They were +4 underdogs. Game ended up finishing 35-29, so very close. Saints ended up covering. The Saints are a good team. We'll expect them to, lose in the first or second round in the playoffs. Meanwhile, the Lions are, they're going to continue to play good teams close. That's kind of their MO. They have Matt Stafford, who's just a stud of a quarterback. Kenny Galladay's back. That offense seems to be clicking pretty well. They jumped out to a 14-0 lead, and then in classic kind of Lions fashion, end up not coming through in the fourth quarter. So I'm expecting more of the same from them. So they'll be dangerous to bet against, I think, and a good team to target on upsets. At least that's the way I'm going to approach them. Chargers, Buccaneers is our next game. So I recommended this as an avoid. The Buccaneers were like 7-point favorites and it ended up finishing 31-38 Buccaneers. So higher scoring than I would have expected and right around that spread. So I'm kind of glad I avoided this game. I would say the most surprising thing is the Chargers offense really sparked up. I know they lost Austin Eckler fairly early in the game. And then they had to rely, I guess, sort of on Justin Herbert's arm. And, he lit up. I think he had 300 yards. It was just hitting like no-name receivers. I don't know where they're making up these names on some of these receivers, but people have never heard of just catching touchdown passes. So that was interesting. Well, it's really going to be, we're in week 4. I have no idea what this Chargers team is going to look like. If they go back to Tyrod Taylor, fire Anthony Lynn. I think they'll stick with Herbert, and then who knows? It's week 4. Who knows what they'll look like by week 8 or by week 12, by week 16. I think they could be, around 500 and fighting for a wild card spot. Just considering, I know they're in a kind of a tough division, but considering the extra wild card spots this year, who knows? I think there's going to be a lot of teams who are in the hunt towards the end of the year. The Bucs seem to get back into this game and end up winning just through sheer persistence. Tom Brady had a 5-touchdown game. I'm starting to feel a bit better about the Buccaneers. It just seems like the first 3 weeks they were a little shaky. I think I was right not to have a ton of trust in them. But now they're kind of developing into more of the team that people expected them to be. And I think, through the last 8 weeks, as the playoffs approach, they're really going to be a powerhouse. Unfortunately, the spreads have already been treating them that way. So I guess I'm seeing them come more in line with the way they've been bet, the way Vegas has been treating them. So it's not like you can start hammering their spreads and be like, oh, I can finally take advantage of this because they're a good team. No, they've already been treated like a good team. But now it's maybe a little more trustworthy, a little more kind of in line. Hopefully the spreads don't adjust even further up. Jags and Bengals. Jaguars, Bengals. Bengals? I'm saying that weird. So Joey Burrow finally gets his first win. This is, something I predicted. Was exciting to see. It was also exciting to see Joe Mixon get going, especially for any fantasy owners out there. AJ Green owners, on the other hand, myself included, it's not looking good. I don't know if AJ Green is gonna have a renaissance later in the year, but right now it seems like he's pretty phased out, pretty not coming through for Joe Burrow when he hits him. So moment of silence for that. Then the Jags, I would say they popped off kind of the first 2 weeks, and then weeks 3 and weeks 4, they've really fallen back down to the team we expected them to be. And I would say trust what you're seeing now. I think going into the year, people thought the Jaguars are going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and I think we've seen that the last 2 weeks that they've really, they may have fooled us for a minute, but that's kind of who they are deep down. I think Minshew and Chark and this James Robinson running back are going to be able to throw some punches and put up fights at different times, but for the most part, they are a pretty bad football team, and they're going to have a top 5 draft pick coming up here. Next up, Vikings Texans. Speaking of some high draft picks, the Vikings and Texans went into this game both at 0-3. Vikings kind of had a weird week with the Titans coming down with COVID, so they had to evacuate their facility. Didn't phase them too much. I do think the Vikings are a more talented roster front to back. I look at the Texans, I see a lot of has-been kind of wide receivers and a has-been running back in David Johnson, and then you got Deshaun Watson with a pretty bad offensive line. And then on the defensive side, you got a washed-up J.J. Watt, and I think Whitney Merciless is pretty old too, and not a lot else to talk about. So yeah, they're just a bad team, and unfortunately, they just paid Deshaun Watson, and they've traded away a lot of draft picks here. They don't have their first and second next year, so not a lot of hope in sight for you Houston Texans fans. Sorry about that. You're just gonna, seems like, well, hopefully you guys can move on from Bill O'Brien here this year, and they can finally cut ties with the coach, and maybe that'll turn things around. But in this trajectory, it sure seems like we're just wasting Deshaun Watson's career. And I hope that doesn't happen, because I really do like him. One more note on that game is Justin Jefferson. It seems like the real deal. Now we've had 2 weeks of pretty explosive output from him. As someone who was drafted to be the Stephon Diggs replacement, I know Stephon Diggs is having a great season right now with Josh Allen up in Buffalo, but Justin Jefferson's looking pretty good. So you got to be excited about that if you're a Vikes fan. And I am a Vikes fan. So it was nice to see them get a win, even though I'm kind of more on the tank trajectory at this point. I don't think much is going to happen in the season. But I don't know, maybe we can get a wild card and lose in the playoffs. Anyway, Hawks, Fins. So we got Seahawks and Dolphins. So this one was on my avoids list, and I feel pretty justified in avoiding it. It was a 6.5 point spread in favor of the Seahawks. Ended up finishing 31-23. So the Seahawks did cover the spread, but it didn't quite play out the way I don't think anyone expected. It ended up just hitting the 54-point over-under. But I think a lot of people were taking the over on this one, expecting a shootout between Russell Wilson and Fitzmagic. But Fitzmagic does kind of as Fitzmagic does, and he struggled out of the gate on this one, threw an interception, struggled to get things going early against the Seahawks defense that hasn't been very good. And that'll happen. There's a reason Ryan Fitzpatrick has never been, it was with journeyman quarterback, was always a stopgap quarterback. He has games where he looks electric and can throw his way, into being competitive. And then there's other games where, he throws a couple interceptions and, doesn't do it for you. So I guess that's to be expected. I would say some interesting takeaways would be, I don't think I'm breaking ground here when I say DK Metcalf is clearly the number one receiver for Russell Wilson in Seattle right now. Pretty crazy. I know he had so much combine hype and stuff. It made me a DK Metcalf doubter of what he was going to do. And then he fell in the draft a little bit. I wasn't expecting much out of him. And it seems like they've turned him into quite a receiver. At least, I don't know. I'm sure Russell Wilson's passing ability is part of that. But, hard to doubt DK at this point. He's been looking pretty phenomenal. Then I would say the other sneaky takeaway is going forward, I think the Dolphins defense is kind of better than people are giving it credit for, or is just kind of sneaky difficult. The Seahawks still put up 31 points, but they definitely struggled more than they had in the first 3 weeks. Russell threw 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, and now he throws 2 and an interception. So he definitely, the Seahawks definitely struggle a little bit more against this Dolphins defense. And I don't think the Dolphins are a very good team. I think they're going to be maybe hovering just below 500 at the end of the season. But I think if you see any high double-digit spreads or high spreads, definitely respect the Dolphins a little bit and what they can do on the defensive side, and obviously what Fitzpatrick can do. Next up, the game everyone's probably talking about is Browns-Cowboys. So I was on the Cowboys side of this. So Cowboys were favored -4.5, and the Browns hadn't played all that special going into this game. So I still feel fine with the information that was available at the time, taking that side of it. But, shame on me for trusting the Cowboys ever. The Browns end up spanking the Cowboys 49-38. Just turned on the gas and never lit up. And this is kind of the Browns that everyone's kind of been waiting for 2 years now. They wasted a year with Freddie Kitchens last year, and now they brought in Kevin Stefanski. And this game, we started to see some what Stefanski brings. Creativity in the offense, the trick play with Jarvis Landry heaving a touchdown to Odell Beckham, really cool to see. And now Baker, I'm hoping this kind of gives Baker some confidence going forward, and we can see more of that arm that Baker has shown to have at times. And I wish I would have seen more of this game. I know it's easy to look at the stat line and say Odell Beckham is back, but I really would have liked to see a little more of this game and eye test and see if it was just him putting up stats or if Odell Beckham really is playing at the level he used to play at when he was a Giant back with Eli Manning. So I guess we'll have to wait and see, or I'll have to do a little more research to see if Odell really is back. But man, it could be exciting for the Browns. I mean, it's tough because the AFC North is a really tough division. You have the Steelers and the Ravens, and I like one of those two teams to win the division and probably take a wild card. So that puts the Browns in a pretty tough spot. But anything's possible. I guess we'll have to see. I definitely like the Stefanski hire and kind of what he brings. So we'll have to see going forward what the Browns do. It's exciting to kind of see that. I think it'll still be a little hard to trust because their defense is not good, and we'll have to see if they can be consistent. Also, they just lost Nick Chubb, potentially. I mean, he's got a knee injury. I heard he was carted off. We'll have to see what comes back from that. They still do have Kareem Hunt, but it's still not a good thing to lose one of the best rushers in football. On the other side of this one, we got the Cowboys, and shame on me for trusting them. The Cowboys, I mean, if they had an MO, it would be playing disappointing football. Having the personnel to have high expectations and then not playing well at all. I think bottom of a terrible division right now. I just got done talking about the AFC North. On the other side of it, the NFC East is awful. You got the Redskins, I think, leading the division right now. Just trash. But what more can I say? If there's one thing I'm going to say, is just that if they wanted a coach who could underachieve and underperform, I think they did a great job in hiring Mike McCarthy. I don't know why they hired him. I thought he was a pretty bad choice. I mean, with his career with the Packers, I think it was always Rodgers kind of getting it done in spite of him. There was a year where they had a good roster and were able to, make a run. And other than that, it was just always Aaron Rodgers. And if Aaron Rodgers was hurt, there were two different stretches where Aaron Rodgers got hurt. One where it might have been a collarbone both times, might have been a calf, I can't remember. But two different stretches where Aaron Rodgers went down, and they went from being a playoff caliber team to not like a middle of the road team playing with their backup. No, they went to basically a team that cannot win, and it just night and day proved that Aaron Rodgers was the thing that made that team go, and without him, they were a 0-win football team. And there were two different instances of that, and I just don't understand how you can look at that and be like, oh, no, he's a really successful coach. He won a lot of games in Green Bay. It's like he also had one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Come on. So the Cowboys are doing Cowboys things, and the NFC East is kind of that way every year. There's a bunch of bad teams, and they just take turns, getting a 9-win season and going to the playoffs. That's all I got to say about that, I guess. Cards, Panthers. So this was a game I kind of liked the Cardinals in, just because, Cardinals got off to a hot start, and, Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray, always touted as, this dynamic offense, and what are they going to be able to do on offense? So I guess I thought that got overhyped through the first 2 weeks, and then week 3 they got brought down to earth, and then against the Panthers, who are a pretty bad team, I liked them favored -3.5. But they end up losing, 21-31. Panthers take this one. Probably should have been an avoid for me because I have not been paying attention to very much Panthers football. I like Teddy Bridgewater because he was with the Vikes. Don't have a lot of faith in him as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Christian McCaffrey went down. Very little interest on my end. They had so many starters and veterans leave on defense, with the retirements and whatnot. Just not too excited about the Panthers this year. But the Cardinals on the other side, I'm also not that excited about them. They've been a bad, bottom 10 team for several years now. They brought in Kyler, they brought in Cliff Kingsbury, but they still don't have a defense. They still don't have like a great offensive line. Their run game has continued to disappoint with Kenyon Drake, who I think fooled people with some flashes into thinking he was like a really talented running back when I don't really think he really is if you look at the entire picture of his career. But anyway, I probably should have avoided it more just because these are two teams I don't know much about, but whatever. I ended up having a really good week, by the way. Probably should have said that earlier in the video. I mean, other than the Browns loss, hit on the Broncos, hit on the Colts that are coming up, end up hit on the Bills. Had a pretty good week. A lot of my avoids I felt good about avoiding and glad I did not try to choose a side because I would have been, wrong on most of them. So a few quick hitters here. Ravens Skins, another one I kind of sort of predicted. 31-17. Ravens easily covered, the 13-point spread. Was a little surprised Ravens didn't score a little more, but I didn't pay a lot of attention to this game. I was expecting the Ravens to crush the Washington team, and that's kind of what happened. Giants-Rams, this was an avoid for me. Giants were favored, -13. Ended up having a pretty poor performance. The game finishes up 9-17 in favor of the Rams. They do not cover. So I guess if you were really betting Giants to cover the 13, good for you. You got a nice set there to try to bet on the Giants at that given point in time. That wasn't me. I avoided that. Feel fine about avoiding it. Colts Bears. This was a more low-scoring affair than I expected. Ended up finishing up 19-11. So Colts, easily cover the 3 or 2.5 point spread, depending on where you took it. Not much to say there. I would say just as a fan, I would like to see the Colts turn it over to Jonathan Taylor a little bit more. Seems like they're trying to maybe limit him just because he's a rookie, or anything. But I think everyone sees when he gets the ball, he's been very good, pretty dynamic. But I think maybe long term they are following a pretty good strategy in terms of, if they have playoff aspirations to win the division, then maybe trying to limit his touches and saving them for later in the season. I mean, as long as you're winning games, it's hard to really complain. Bills Raiders. So the Bills end up, easily covering the 3-point spread that I had kind of expected. But man, it seems like it's always a journey with the Bills. It doesn't really matter if they're playing a good team or a bad team. Like they've been finding ways to win and been playing. Josh Allen's been playing really well. His arm's been great, but their defense hasn't really shown up, and they don't really. I don't know. They're always kind of keep teams in it, which is not really a place you want to be, especially when they get to the playoffs. Because, I'm expecting them to win this division, but if they're gonna keep, I don't know what I'm really saying. Just be nice to see them. I guess more confidently beat teams rather than gut it out in the end, if that makes sense. All right, then probably the game I was most wrong about for the week, and maybe I oversold this like on my Twitter a little bit, but the Eagles and 49ers. So the 49ers were minus 7-point favorites, and that shifted up a little bit. The Eagles are an injury-riddled team, and the 49ers are also an injury-riddled team. But they had what I still kind of think is a capable backup in Nick Mullins at the helm. And they were getting, Deebo Samuel back. Kittle was coming back. And, I really liked them to steamroll the Eagles like they did last week to a depleted Giants team. But, man, Nick Mullins had a rough go of it. I shut this game off when I saw Nick Mullins pass the ball to an Eagles linebacker to allow a pick six, and just one of the most mind-boggling throws. I don't know if it wasn't as bad if you were there in person, but man, it looked like he just intentionally threw that interception to the linebacker and allowed the pick six. So man, that was rough. This one ended up finishing up like 25-20, I think. So the Eagles upset. So if you really took the Eagles upset, good for you. Apologies if you jumped on the 49ers. Can only predict the future so well. I would say some interesting takeaways. Kittle, whoa. Stat line was 18 catches, 183 yards, and 1 touchdown. Monster game. Hard to believe you can lose with a game like that. Brandon Ayuk is looking really dynamic. If you haven't seen the highlight of his run and hurdle, definitely look that up. Really cool. He got so high. Unbelievable. We'll see what he does. I'm not so sure I'm convinced on him in terms of a fantasy production, just because Kyle Shanahan spreads the ball around so much. It's hard to trust any players in that offense week to week, with the exception of Kittle, maybe Raheem Mostert. But anyway, he's a fun player to watch. So if I was a 49ers fan, definitely excited to see that out of him. Deebo Samuel was pretty quiet in his return, which is not too unexpected. And then on the Eagles side, man, Carson Wentz must be looking at the press clippings, because I really saw in the bits of this game that I watched, he was really kind of pulling kind of Andrew Luck style runs, not typically a running threat. But when his team, wasn't working around him, he was like, fine, I'll get the job done myself, and ran for a few first downs, a few key plays, really kind of put himself at risk and gutted that team to victory. So I think that's a positive sign for all the hate that was being thrown Carson Wentz's way lately. I guess I still kind of think Carson Wentz is a pretty good quarterback, just based on what he did that during the regular season on that Super Bowl run, where he was having an MVP season, and then he got hurt, and then Nick Foles finished it off for him. I guess exciting signs, but man, they need to get a little healthier. They need to sign some younger wide receivers, and so they don't have to rely on guys like Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey. Hopefully for Carson Wentz's sake, they get that figured out, but I don't really like the Eagles or their fans. Sorry. So don't feel that bad. Then 2 games coming up tonight. So we got Patriots-Chiefs, got rescheduled for Monday night. Might be canceled by the time you watch this. I still think that game is still in jeopardy if any more positive tests come out from Patriots or the Chiefs side. And Cam Newton is not playing because he was the patient zero on the Patriots side. So that spread, I actually took the Patriots money line before the Chiefs played the Ravens, and obviously that was kind of a statement win. Now I wouldn't touch the Patriots on this one. So right now the Chiefs are 7-point favorites. That has moved, they opened at 7-point favorites. That has moved to 10.5-point favorites. So if this game happens, probably take the Chiefs, 10.5 points. Without Cam Newton, who knows? Bill Belichick definitely can do some things, but man, talent-wise, they're definitely overmatched by that Chiefs roster. Then last game, Falcons-Packers. So this one is one I have flipped on throughout the week. So this opened at a -7 Packers favorites. It's moved to -6.5. So injury news, it looks like Julio Jones and Ridley are probably going to play. They've been limited all week, but the news that's been coming out on fantasy apps and stuff seems to indicate that they're going to play. Meanwhile, Devontae Adams, the Packers side, is going to be out. And then you have Jair Alexander, the Packers' best corner, who you're going to need against these Falcons. He was full participant, but then on Friday he didn't practice and was on the injury report with a hand and an ankle. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. Tried to Google it, didn't find anything, but that is not good if they have to go into that game without their best corner. Additionally, on defense, they have Kenny Clark and Zadarius Smith, who've been limited all week. Kenny Clark missed last week. So if, without, those are probably their three top, key defenders there between Jair Alexander, Kenny Clark, and Zadarius Smith. So not a good sign, and obviously Devontae Adams, I mentioned. So not a good sign for the Packers. They've looked very good. Packers have looked very bad, or the Falcons have looked very bad. So, initially it was on the Packers side, but now I'm starting to like the Falcons to cover. I don't know. As much flip-flopping and uncertainty that are in my head is in my head at this point, I probably should just avoid this game, but I might just place some bets on the Falcons to bail out my previous bets on the Packers. We'll see. Maybe just, yeah, I guess we'll see. Maybe I'll decide something foolish to do that I'm sure I'll regret. But that's all for this video. If you want kind of more real-time updates or, changes in my thinking as the week goes on, any relevant news to any of the spreads, check out my Twitter at favoritefade.com. And definitely, if you think I'm an idiot, let me know in the comments. I would like, when I started this is just going to be like a hobby, this channel, but I would definitely like some more input from people, why I'm an idiot or what I'm missing, takeaways that I maybe missed of any of these games that because I'm a Vikings fan, I'm primarily going to watch the Vikings. I'm primarily going to watch like the primetime games. I don't go back and rewatch games. I don't have the time for that. So if you guys are, I don't know, a Giants fan and have something you can share, definitely interested to learn that and know more about some of these other teams that I don't follow as closely. So yeah, check out the Twitter, check out the comments. Thanks.